Then I started writing something that eventually became the first part of The Queen is Dead. That part up until the point where they take Georgie home. It was called Love's Labor's Lost. So I started writing this, and my wife would come home from work, and I'd read what I'd written to her, and we enjoyed it. It was wonderful. We got a lot of laughs. It was really funny. It was just terrific. And I had about a dozen pages written, and I suddenly realized one day I had no idea what I was doing. I was just writing. I had no idea what I was doing, so I threw everything away, and I sat there. Now, it may have only been a few hours, but it seems like days that I just sat there. I suppose you might call it a meditation or a contemplation. I don't know, but I just sat there. And that's when my basic aesthetic was revealed to me. This is wasn't a conscious thing. I didn't think these ideas up. It didn't come from my conscious mind. It came from within me. It just presented itself. And I knew that I had to do more than just tell a story. And that for me, what was important, that I look at a story and try and find the very essence of it. What's the psychodynamic here? What really moved this whole thing? And from that essence, create a work of art. And I knew that I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, there's a story in my head. Now, why is this story here? Well, the answer is simple and obvious. That's the story I'm supposed to write at this time. For whatever reason, I'm supposed to write this story. And then, in thinking of these things, I developed my own aesthetic and my own approach. I knew that I had to be true to the people. That if there's any message in the story that I write, it's the people and their lives. That I just don't want to write messages. That's not important to me. The important thing are the people, and the important part of the people, they're thinking. I very seldom get into any physical description other than maybe attitudes or something like that. But you don't know if they have green hair, purple hair, and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's not important to me. Tall, short, that's not important. It's what are you doing to yourself? What's going on up here? And how is that reflected in your actions? And what you do to and for people. It wasn't really a choice like saying to myself, I will just write a short story, I will write a novel. It's just the thing was there, that Love's Labor's Lost was where I started. And that eventually became The Queen is Dead. And another story would pop up, and I'd write it. Now you see, the thing is, I had to learn how to write. That's probably why I was guided to just start on small pieces, because I had no idea how to write. I had to learn. And what I realize now in retrospect is that you don't learn everything at once. I write one little piece of work, and maybe what I'm learning in writing that is how to utilize narrative. And then something else, maybe you have to learn how to utilize dialogue. Something else, what I'm learning, is structure. But all these various different aspects of writing, and I think each one gives me an opportunity to learn those things and eventually to bring them together. And also, I had to learn how to think. You see, I never thought in terms of story, in terms of writing. So I had to understand how to get at that essence of the story I was referring to. I had to get to that essence, the psychodynamic, what moves this thing. But if I don't know what that is, then I can't create from that point. So the writing helped me find that. For instance, Tra-La-La is about 20 pages long, and it took me 2.5 years to write. Now, all that time was spent in trying to find the story. And after 2.5 years, I realized that what it was, my focus for this story was to reflect the psychodynamics of an individual through the rhythm and tension of a prose line. And once I realized that that was my focus for this story, then the story just came out as fast as I could type. And then I was in bed for 2 weeks. But you see, it was all a learning process. And I suspect, looking back now, that that is why I started, and I had to start, with shorter pieces of work, because I had to learn how to go about and how to develop the craft and technique and discipline of writing. And the longest part of the book, if I remember correctly, Strike, is the last thing that I wrote. So you see, it just kind of kept extending itself. About 3 years ago, I don't know what happened. My body just seems to be deteriorating at a rapid pace. Maybe I'm just going through andropause. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. But things that have been gone so long, old thoughts and feelings that have been gone so long, it's as if they never existed, are suddenly coming back. Old doubts are coming back. And I'm just not sure of anything anymore. I reached the point, finally, after many, many years, after 25 years or 30 years of writing, I reached the point of really believing that I had learned how to write. And then when something came to mind, I was capable of putting it on paper in the way it needed to be on the paper. But now these last few years, I'm not sure anymore. I don't know what's good. There's some changes going on. Some of it is physical, but I'm starting to suspect it's another part of my spiritual evolution. And maybe I became too certain of my ability. And that can be a killer, because it's what we don't know that makes life exciting. And if I get to believe I really know, then there's no joy left in it. So I know this is not a definitive answer, but I don't have one. I'm still searching, and I think perhaps that's what it is. I'm going through another spiritual upheaval, different than all the others, like it always is, and that this evolutionary process continues, and it affects my perception of me as a writer as well as in every other area of my life.